We good? Good afternoon. I want to welcome everybody to your July meeting of your State Board of Elections, our first meeting in the new fiscal year for the Commonwealth. Going to ask our secretary to call the roll so we can get started.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Here.
Vice Chair Dance.
Here.
Delegate Merrick's.
Here.
Mr. Weinstein.
Here.
Secretary Alice Long here.
Also want to acknowledge our Commissioner of Elections, Susan Beals, to my right, and our folks from the Attorney General's office, Mr. Polio and Mr. Murphy. So thank you all for joining us. Let me say a word about, we've got a pretty long agenda today. There are two closed sessions. There's one order of old business from our last meeting. I'm not inclined to take additional comment on that piece of business unless somebody has something new or different that you want to add to all the information we already have. I'd be appreciative if everybody would be mindful of the time and respectful of the responsibilities that we have today. I'm going to go ahead and ask for approval of the minutes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the May minutes, if I can get this to work.
Lightly. Oh, too hard. There you go.
All right, try this again. Mr. Chairman, the May 28th and June 18th meeting minutes have been distributed to the board for their review. If there are no corrections or additions needed, then I would ask for a motion to approve them as presented.
We'll do those in a block, absent objection. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Alice Long, aye.
Great, thank you so much. We now have time for public comment. There are a couple of new things. When you are not here in person, if you're coming by video, it will now be necessary for you to have your full face on the screen to be counted. So in the old days, if you tried to call in by phone, that will no longer be accepted. You can always put in your comments in writing as well, but we'll give everybody 3 minutes each as we usually do, and we'll start with the folks here in the room first. No questions about that. I have a list of folks here that signed up. Miriam Cruz, welcome.
Glad to be here today. So I'm going to speak about cleaning up the voter registration rolls. Can you all hear me? All right,
Yeah.
okay. So we've got our election coming up on November 5, the general election, and it's imperative that the Commissioner of Elections clean up Virginia's registered voter list by August 6, which is mandated by law. It's specified in the National Voting Rights Act that requires states, and I quote, to conduct a general program that makes a reasonable effort to remove, unquote, from the official voter rolls, quote, the names of ineligible voters, unquote, who have either died or changed residence. This law requires registrations to be canceled when voters fail to respond to address confirmation notices and then fail to vote in the next 2 general elections. As of April 8, 2024, there are approximately 16,597 inactive voters listed in Richmond City's registered voter list. The Richmond City jurisdiction, in anticipation of issuing an extraordinary number of provisional ballots during the November 5 general election, has said they will engage 1 officer of election per 72 precincts just to handle provisional ballots. It's important to note that on election day, any individual can enter a polling place without an ID and vote a provisional ballot by simply completing a, quote, ID confirmation statement, unquote, form. Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. I'd like to say hello to the board. My name is Richard Lister. I've worked as an officer of election in the last few elections in Richmond City, and I'd like to continue on with our presentation. If you take a look at your attachments, the form here shows the voter ID confirmation statement. So this form requires an individual to recite the voter's name and address to an officer of election on election day, and then only print the voter's name and provide a dated signature. This procedure, which is legal in the Commonwealth of Virginia, can be very vulnerable to fraud. When a registered voter list is not purged of inactive voters who are ineligible, any individual off the street can claim to be an inactive voter without any form of ID and vote. Inactive registered voter lists by jurisdiction are readily available to both political parties and any candidate who's running in that specific election. One example of an ineligible voter who is still listed as an inactive voter on the Richmond City registered voter list is Emily Joyce Owen of 1910 Blair Street, Richmond. She moved to St. Petersburg, Florida, and voted in the general election in 2020 and 2022 in Florida. Emily Owen was listed as an inactive voter on the ES&S Express Poll electronic poll books in this past election on June 18 in Richmond City. In summation, we, the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia, beseech the Commissioner of Elections to kindly do the needful and purge all the ineligible voters presently listed as either inactive or active from the voter rolls in accordance with the National Voter Registration Act, to preclude the possibility of any fraudulent votes being cast on November 5th, 2024. We would like to thank the State Board of Elections for your consideration of our request to clean up the voter rolls before the deadline on August 6th, post haste before the 90-day period begins. Clean voter rolls are essential to free and fair elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lister. Next, we have Dale Dunn, Orange County Electoral Board.
Good afternoon, Commissioner, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to urge you to choose the batch comparison method for this fall's statewide risk limiting audit. By using this method, we have an opportunity to both affirm the election results and provide a boost in voter confidence in the election process. As one of the 9 electoral board members with experience using it, it's my opinion that the batch comparison audit is more meaningful than the ballot poll method. In an email I sent to all of you on June 5th, I offered 12 reasons why I think the batch comparison method makes sense. I will emphasize 3 of those here. 1, while affirming the election outcome, an audit that directly compares ballot hand counts to corresponding electronic scanner results provides an even greater benefit of validating the accuracy of the scanners. 2, we can achieve this direct validation on all of the scanner systems used statewide. An irony from last fall's 3-county batch comparison risk limiting audit was that all 3 of us, Orange, Loudoun, and Arlington, use exactly the same Unison system. So this method has not been used on the HART, ESS, or Dominion scanners. 3, it's not difficult. If you find yourself weighing the amount of effort involved, and since most of the work will be done in the localities, consider this, please. When we announced our intention to perform a batch comparison audit last fall, we had more volunteers than we could use. Virginia citizens want to know how well these scanners work, and they're willing to do the work to find out. So why not let them? So I believe the batch comparison risk limiting audit is in the best interest of all Virginians, Democrat and Republican alike. In this time of low trust in government, we should be doing as much as possible to restore that trust. This is a golden opportunity to do just that. Thank you and happy 4th.
Thank you very much. Next is Shelley Oberlander, Loudoun County Electoral Board.
Good afternoon, Chairman O'Bannon, State Board members, and Commissioner Beals. My name is Shelley Oberlander. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Loudoun County Electoral Board. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, but we sent you, unanimous from our board, an email May 24th explaining that the Loudoun County Electoral Board is asking you to choose the batch comparison method for the upcoming statewide risk limiting audit. In February of 2021, Loudoun participated in what I think was the first statewide risk limiting audit using the ballot polling method. And there was a lot of dissatisfaction with this method. Many felt there was an insufficient number of ballots audited. I participated in that audit, and 63 ballots were audited in Loudoun out of 225,000. I think for the whole state, maybe 1,400 were audited for about 4.5 million. So it's a difficult method to understand and to explain to the public, and many feel it's an insufficient amount testing of the ballots. So as you all know, probably there's a stack of ballots that are weighed, and then you pull, one or two specific numbers out, and some counties only audited one ballot. So we now have all learned about the batch comparison method. You all have approved that, and we've been able to do 2 batch comparison method audits in Loudoun. Both were successful, both were well received by the staff and by the public. And so along with Orange County, we want to commend and recommend and ask that you choose, because we can't choose this time, you all choose which method will be used for the statewide risk limiting audit. Some reasons for you to choose the batch comparison method. It audits more ballots, giving greater confidence to the accuracy of the audit and to the accuracy of the election. The batch comparison method hand counts all the ballots of a randomly selected precinct and compares the hand count results with the voting machine results. And as the last speaker said, verifies the accuracy of the voting machines as well as the election. The 3 counties that have done the batch comparison method, as was also said by the previous speaker, all happen to use Unison scanners, and they were proven accurate. So this statewide audit is an opportunity for the state to have the voting machines proven accurate, Hart, ES&S, and Dominion. And I feel that this will give great confidence to the citizens of Virginia. And so we ask you to choose the batch comparison method, please, to verify the voting machine brands, all of them in Virginia, and to give the most meaningful, transparent, risk limiting audit possible to the Virginia voters throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next is Mary Ann McKay, Norfolk Electoral Board. Ms. McKay.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you. My name is Mary McKay. I'm the Vice Chair of Norfolk Electoral Board, and I am here to advocate for the batch comparison method, focusing on from the perspective of, I think that is the best way of building confidence for our citizens in terms of the election process. Our country and people, there's a lot of polarization. It's very divisive. And in terms of the upcoming election, I am concerned that it doesn't matter what side wins. I think either side is going to really question in terms of the integrity of the election and question the results. And I think a great first step that you've done is doing the mandatory audit. But I think it would be taken to a higher level if you chose the batch comparison method, because it is easier to understand. To explain to a person that you just pull out a few number of ballots and then look for a ratio that's similar for the sample that you pulled out, comparing with the results, it's not something that most people are going to understand. I mean, I took a statistical class, and it was, most people just had a hard time understanding statistics, where if you tell them you've pulled out a batch and you've counted them straightforward, it's the similar hand count, and you compare that and it matches up with the scanners, it just makes more sense. People understand that. And what they understand, they're more likely to accept. And I just think that we should do everything possible to build confidence in our institutions. And I just think that would be a huge step toward doing that. So I would just advocate that you consider the batch comparison method. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Curtis Stolt, James City County Electoral Board, welcome.
I have a copy down.
All right, so she will.
Hello, my name is Curtis Stolt. I live at 303 Moody's Run in Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm a registered voter in James City County. I'm a retired physician and now fulfill my civic duty as a board member of the JCC Electoral Board. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment at this Virginia State Board meeting. I come to you today as an informed and concerned voter to strongly request that elect require the use of batch comparison method for performing the required risk-limiting audit for the November general election. I'm not a mathematician or a statistician, but I have been a medical scientist for over 40 years. I know that at least 3 of you have also had a medical profession background as well. Many of you may know more about statistics than me, but the practice of medicine requires fundamental knowledge of statistics and statistical analysis in order to understand any scientific articles on the treatment of disease. The most fundamental criteria for a good scientific study is the size of the study. The larger the number of the participants or data points in the study, the stronger the results and conclusions that can be made. The most reliable gold standard scientific studies are large, multi-center, randomized controlled studies. Using the batch comparison method for the RLA is much more like the large, multi-center, randomized controlled study with a much larger confidence interval than the limited ballot polling method, which audits many fewer ballots. May I give you an example? I have a patient with disease X. There have been 2 studies, treatment studies, protocols, which for the treatment of disease X. Study A has 10 participants or patients enrolled in the study, and 9 out of those 10 patients have been cured by the disease using the treatment in of the protocol that this study evaluated. That's a 90% efficacy rate. Study B has 10,000 patients enrolled in the study, and 9,000 patients of those 10,000 were cured of disease X using the treatment protocol studied. Also a 90% efficacy. Which protocol would you recommend for your patient with disease X? It is very clear that the results of study B have a much greater confidence interval based on the much larger sample size. Scientific studies are much more complicated than this. This example is, but this shows the importance of a large sample. If we are going to require and spend money and time to perform an RLA, we should do it in the best possible and most confident way that we can in order to provide confidence and transparency in our election process. A batch comparison RLA would be the equivalent to the large multi-center randomized controlled study. Large because it involves an entire precinct that you count all the ballots to evaluate that scanner. It's a multi-center that all 133 localities in Virginia would be using the same process. It's randomized because the precincts are randomly selected using the RLA and Arlo process.
I'm going to ask you to try to finish up as you're close to your 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. That pretty much tells me what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Other folks in person, Daniel Bruce.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Bruce of the law firm Holtzman Vogel. I'm speaking today on behalf of John McGuire, the presumptive Republican nominee for Virginia's 5th Congressional District. I'm here today to just correct some of the public record about the integrity of this election and the results of this election. And the board's task today is limited. The board is to open and tabulate the returns and declare the nominee. And the board can do that with the information it has before it. And voters in Virginia's 5th Congressional District can be confident in the legitimacy of the result and that it reflects the will of the voters. There have been public reports about trying to undermine the results of this election, about fire alarms that went off on election day. Those have all been explained by local registrars and electoral boards. They provide no reason to doubt the results of this election. There's also been reports about a drop box in Lynchburg and reason to believe that could be a reason to doubt the result. But it simply does not provide reason for the board to refuse to do its task today. The registrar and the electoral board in Lynchburg thoroughly investigated that issue. The registrar prepared a report that indicated members of the registrar staff did not observe any ballots being placed in that ballot box after Election Day. I was personally at the canvass where the board discussed this report, and based on that information, decided that it can move forward in counting the votes with the confidence that those ballots were cast on Election Day. And in the end, we're talking about 7 ballots from that drop box, nowhere near enough to change the result of this election, where John McGuire leads Bob Good by a margin of nearly 400 votes. We are confident in the integrity of this election and the legitimacy of the result. We thank the local registrars, their staff, and the local electoral boards for the care with which they conducted this election, and we are confident that this board will tabulate the result and declare John McGuire the Republican nominee for Virginia's 5th Congressional District. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Clarabelle Wheeler.
Thank you, Dr. Oban and members of the board. It's a pleasure to see friends who understand elections. You've heard from now 5 members of local electoral boards who take our positions very seriously. One of the things that we find most important is that we are responsible to the voters, as are you. It is our responsibility to explain to the voters how elections are tabulated, how votes are counted, and how we report those votes. The previously used ballot polling method, as you've heard from other electoral board members, is very confusing. It is almost impossible to explain that method to the average voter. You have to have a PhD in statistics and disregard the book that is on the front page of every entering statistics student that says how to lie with statistics. I actually know where my copy is. Many of us can understand statistics, but probably the average voter doesn't. And trying to explain to the average voter, or even electoral board members and registrars and observers who have watched a ballot polling audit take place, they come away going, what the heck was that? A batch comparison is really simple. You bring the ballots out from the clerk's office, the electoral boards and the officers of election hand count the randomly selected race. The only race that y'all are going to require this year by law is the U.S. Senate. We've got to count the U.S. Senate race. We hand count in each locality the randomly selected chosen precincts. The observers understand, they see the ballots being counted. The ballots match the tapes that come off the optical scan, and everybody goes away, whether your candidate wins or loses, at least you know the ballots have been counted correctly. And that's the purpose of a batch comparison risk limiting audit. And as you know, and as you've been told, we will use all of the optical scans in Virginia in this audit. I hope you will consider, and I hope you will mandate using a batch comparison. It's quick, it's easy, it's reproducible, and maybe most importantly, it's understandable by the voters. And that's our first responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just for the record, you are on the electoral board in Albemarle.
Thank you very much. I am vice chair of the Albemarle County Electoral Board, as all of us are on electoral boards. Thank you.
Anybody else in person who would like to speak today? All right, we'll move to virtual. Catherine Zampolin?
I'm actually in person. I did not sign up to speak. I just was.
Are you Catherine?
No, I'm sorry. I did not sign up to speak. I don't know how that did.
Oh, you just signed in. Okay. Thank you very much.
Enough to speak.
All right. Melody Clark. Second call, Melody Clark. We'll catch her if she comes in. David Law. David Law, virtual. Okay. Jim Batolpin.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Well, thank you for your time, Commissioner Beal, honorable board members. My name is Jim Bodolf. I'm from Leesburg. At your last meeting, I made some comments advocating for the board to select a batch comparison approach for your upcoming risk limiting audit. I see others have been advocating for this as well. I'm not going to pile on with that, necessarily repeat all those points, but it's quite a long list of benefits. You've already heard many of them. But since then, I did have the opportunity to work your primary election on June 18th, so I wanted to share a few more observations if I could. Although I only recently moved to Virginia, this wasn't my first election. I've lost count, but I believe it was at least my 40th election. I spent many years serving as an election official in my former hometown in New Hampshire. I was particularly impressed with the fact that you've made dramatic changes to your electoral system since 2020. And I'm amazed at how well you have pulled it off, although it is, of course, still very new. New Hampshire also initiated changes due to COVID. The changes were nowhere near as significant as what your legislature left you to deal with in a short period of time, and what you've managed to do in response is truly impressive. In spite of your best efforts, however, as everyone must understand by now, due to the unfortunate political environment we're in, all this COVID electoral churn has turned up a great deal of anxiety on the subject of election integrity. Confidence in elections is almost as important as the actual accuracy of the count, as you must know. Having a risk limiting audit that crosses all of your systems and enhances confidence in the outcome has to be one of your top goals of this audit. The more people look at the approach you've relied upon in the past, this so-called ballot polling method, the worse it looks, to be honest, with all due respect. It's way too difficult to understand, and you've heard about the 1,400 ballots out of 4.5 million ballots cast, supposedly going to give us reliable analysis. You're never going to convince many of the rank and file election workers that this is sufficient, to say nothing of the general public. The only way this audit could possibly enhance confidence among the public using this so-called audit is to convince them through some statistical jargon that you need a PhD in physics to fully understand. And frankly, they aren't buying it, and I don't blame them. And we understand time is short. Audit training is just a corner for your notifications to your boards around the state. It's clear you have to make a decision soon or now, perhaps, on what process to use to go forward. This decision's an easy layup for you folks, to use a basketball term. The batch comparison method's already tested. It works well. You've got people clamoring for it. All you have to do is direct that it be done. And then you've made some progress in terms of enhancing the confidence in your election going forward. Now, that's all I have. I yield back the balance of my time, if any, and I also want to thank you for your time and for all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Douglas Clark, virtually.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I have a few comments here. The last meeting of this body, I informed the board that the Virginia voter rules.
Mr. Clark, hold tight just a second till we can see you.
Okay. Can you see me? Have you enabled?
Signed in?
Yeah, I'm signed in. Have you enabled my camera?
Can you be sure your camera is on?
Okay. You want to move to somebody else while I work on that?
Certainly. Thank you. Next, we have Frank Lusby. Mr. Lusby, you're welcome to speak now if you'll unmute your mic.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Frank Lusby. I'm a resident of Arlington, Virginia, and I also would like to encourage the State Board of Elections to adopt the batch comparison method for upcoming statewide risk-limiting election audits. As you know, the Arlington Election Office and Electoral Board conducted a successful batch comparison audit here last November. I participated in that process, and I can attest that it was well organized, easy to understand, and took less than half a day. By hand tabulating the physical ballots from several precincts and comparing them with the corresponding voting machines or scanners, our election office was able to verify the accuracy of the machines and the results of the election. This provided assurances to the public, some of whom are skeptical about electronic voting machines, and helped to bolster confidence in our election process. The batch comparison audit is also easier to understand and less complicated than the alternative ballot polling method, where random ballots are pulled from stacks and sample sizes are small. I would therefore again recommend that the Board of Elections adopt this method for upcoming statewide risk limiting audits. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Next is Mr. Ned Jones. Mr. Jones? Mr. Jones, can you be sure your camera and microphone are both on?
Yes.
Mr. Jones, make sure your microphone is not muted, please.
Can you hear me now? I had it off.
There you are, yes.
Yeah,
Welcome.
okay, great. Last meeting I brought up a subject of mass mailing of registration forms by an organization called the Center for Voter Information. And I was particularly pointing out the partisan nature of the mailing, where out of 88,000 forms, 81,000 went to 2 congressional districts, 2 and 7. But a new issue has come up, and I want to bring this to your attention. I think it's even more serious than that. They have a cover letter in their mailing that has a QR code. It leads the reader to believe that they can use the QR code to register to vote. But that's not what happens. When you click on the QR code, you're brought to the Center for Voter Information's website, a landing page that, as it says, powered by Rock the Vote. Rock the Vote is a left-wing nonprofit that does data mining. And so if you put in your email and your zip code, like I did, and go to page 2, they ask for all your personal information, name, address, phone number, email. They do ask for your date of birth. They don't ask for your social. And I did not do that page, and I did not click to go further. However, I believe it's illegal in Virginia for these third parties to retain personal information. And if you read the privacy policy for Rock the Vote, they do. They retain it and they actually share it. Now, most people don't read the fine print privacy policy, especially when they think they're being registered to vote by using this QR code. The last mailing is going out in August. They've done 2 so far, one in March, one in June. There's one going in August. And the August mailing was approved by a Mr. Nichols at Elect on May 31. And so I believe there's still time to stop the mailing, or at least tell them not to use the QR code. It's very deceiving. Under the guise of registering unregistered voters, they are collecting personal information, which they're retaining, which may be illegal in Virginia, according to consumer protection laws. We know it is in North Carolina, and an action has been filed, a complaint against the election board in North Carolina, pointing out this egregious effort by this left-wing nonprofit to mine personal information in North Carolina. They're doing the same thing in Virginia, and I urge you to look into it and to stop this practice for the August mailing. And thank you very much.
Cuts off. So I apologize. Next virtual comment is from Roy, and I saw Roy up there, but we'll need his last name.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. My last name is Mabry. M-A-B-R-Y.
Play out.
Go right ahead.
So that's cool. I think we've got enough. I think we've got enough now for like a pretty.
Somebody speaking, I think, that's drowning my voice. Ned Jones. Yep. Thank you, Ned. Mr. Chairman, Ms. Beals, and others. My name is Roy Mabry. I live in Loudoun County, Virginia. I vote in the Weller precinct in the Broad Run district. As you've heard, speakers before me have spoken in favor of the ballot, in favor of the batch comparison method. I think. There is a third method, which is even more rigorous and is easier than that particular method that the previous speakers spoke about. That method is the ballot comparison method. After comparing the three methods presented by Ms. Beal's report on risk-limited audits, January 18th, 2023, I come before you to speak in favor of choosing the ballot comparison method for conducting a risk-limited audit for those localities with the capability of producing the cast vote records. Loudoun County and others have that capability, and those counties with it and who choose to do so should be allowed to choose the ballot comparison method. It is the most efficient and effective method for producing risk-limited audits and is the best method for supporting transparent, free, and fair elections. Thank you. Now I'd like to correct what I said at the very first sentence. Speakers before me have spoken in favor of the batch comparison method, if I didn't say that. And wherever I said ballot comparison, no, I'd just like to correct that. Speakers before me have spoken in favor of the batch comparison method. I rise to speak in favor of the ballot comparison method. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have Douglas Clark back on now? Okay, so I'm going to just encourage Mr. Clark to send us his comments in writing through the website that we have, and I'll acknowledge David Law.
Yes, thank you. I am a Pittsylvania County Electoral Board member, and I have concerns about election material destruction or retention violations. In May of 2023, the former Pennsylvania County Registrar Kelly Cassee had 3,500 pounds, not ballots or pages, but pounds of documents destroyed. She had them shredded, and the biggest concern is that she should have never had those in her possession to be able to destroy them. I have since learned, I was brand new in February of 2023, but have since learned that the majority of election documents are retained by the clerk of court. And almost no documents after an election is over are held by the general registrar. So there's the first issue with it. And my biggest concern is that I have now reported on 4 different occasions to the Attorney General's office after reporting all of the information to our local sheriff and our Commonwealth attorney. And this seems to be going nowhere. And I'm very concerned because it seems to me that simply because the former clerk of court in Pittsylvania County, who did not take record or possession of these records, is a former state police officer. And I'm being told over and over again that that's the body that would investigate these crimes. And yet there seems to be no investigating going on, because I called the Attorney General's office and was told that I needed to submit the information in writing via their email. I've done that now on 3 occasions. And this last time I sent a read request as part of my email, and they've certainly read it. And yet I get no response, not even acknowledging that they've received my email. I just have a hard time believing in a time when election integrity is very controversial, that no one in the Virginia legal system is concerned about these crimes and is willing to investigate it to the point where we're now just ignoring it going on a year. Nothing has happened. I'm hoping that the state electoral board can get involved in this matter and encourage, along with the commissioner, to encourage the Attorney General's office and the state police department to investigate and bring justice. People want, and especially here in Pittsylvania County, people want to know that the legal system operates the way it's supposed to. You cannot just commit crimes and get away with them simply because someone at one point was connected to the system.
Appreciate your comments, Mr. Law.
you.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. We have Anne Gregorian. Ms. Gregorian, welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to speak to agenda item number 6 today concerning the amendment to batch elimination as a tabulation method for ranked choice voting, and I urge the board to vote no on this request. The amendment seeks to truncate RCV tabulation. This basically constitutes a fundamental change to the voting method itself, placing this request in conflict with law and beyond the scope of a simple administrative process. Virginia law clearly defines under 24.2-673.1 that ranked choice voting tabulation proceeds in rounds that in each round, either a candidate is elected or the last place candidate, singular, is defeated. It does not in any way indicate or allow alternate methods of mass elimination based on mathematical algorithms for the sole purpose of expediency. Batch elimination will dismantle transparency and diminish confidence in election results. The massive voter outreach alone to explain yet another option offered under RCV cannot and should not be overlooked. Telling the public to trust the software is never a good idea. Elections should be easily understood by the public, not leave them dazed and confused. Today's amendment request does not include adequate detail to changes in code concerning the treatment of ballots and tabulation under batch elimination. Again, transparency is lacking. The specific trigger, order of transfer and a tie, and a residual ranking rules applied to simultaneous removal of multiple candidates should be made clear to the public. RCV as a voting method requires code exceptions to accommodate equipment limitations, precinct reporting, audits, hand recounts. Concerned parties should bring current and future deficiencies of RCV to the attention of the Virginia legislature rather than keep requesting that Band-Aids be applied from the SBE and elect to redress the problems. I urge the board to deny elect's request for batch elimination today and to please vote no on this amendment. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next, we have Chris Ronlin.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Chris Rowland. I'm from Loudoun County.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
United States Supreme Court, in reversing the Chevron decision on June 28th of 2024, has an impact on the 2024 November general elections as it relates to this body's ability to dictate the selection of risk-limiting audit types, of which there are 3 and not 2, as described in today's meeting package. I have personally written all of you asking you to stop misleading the public in how you document the facts about risk-limiting audit decisions in the state of Virginia, which continues to be ignored. This is no different than you advising this body, of why the Demtech electronics pollbook solution needs to be decertified because it is not compliant with the certification requirements to log all transactions, which Mrs. Beals either misunderstood or purposefully continues to ignore. The Chevron decision applies to risk-limiting audits in that the board cannot justify preventing the use of the ballot comparison method because you feel counties do not have what they need to perform this method. That argument in the case of Loudoun County is blatantly false. We have everything that we need, and most counties in Virginia who have exported cast vote records to people who have submitted FOIA requests to their counties and received those records further underscores the flaw in this board's original justification for the limit to only 2 types of audits allowed universally. Today, you will hear from people in my county who will advocate for the batch comparison method. They do not speak for the majority of my county, and they have not properly been informed. They have not properly informed the population of our choice, our right, and the truth. The board should be honest and transparent in every single time, in every single communication, and in every single decision, that if a county has the ability to perform any of the 3 methods, they should have the right to choose the most stringent, regardless of the board's feelings on the matter. Now, I understand that you're in the process of trying to uniformly apply risk limiting audits across the state for the upcoming election, but you also ought to consider giving the counties who use Unison as an example to be able to do the ballot comparison method. If you really want to spread the risk, or reduce the risk rather, have the ones that don't have the software to produce the cast vote records properly and do the ballot comparison method, do the batch comparison method. Let everybody else do the ballot comparison method. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thomas Kasparick. Mr. Thomas Kasparick.
Yes, I unmuted myself and then I was muted again by someone. All right.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. O'Bannon. And I'd like to call your attention, along with Commissioner Beals, to a letter that you received on June the 24th from America First Legal, which is a legal group that has grave concerns, as do I and many people in Loudoun County where I vote, that there are untold numbers of non-citizens on the voter rolls. And the reason that that's an absolutely accurate statement is because there are no known processes for removing non-citizen voters from the voter rolls in Virginia. And so I want to draw your attention to that, because the registrars across the state are going to get letters and reminders and be put on notice that if they don't know how many non-citizens are on their voter rolls, they are not to certify the 2024 elections. To the risk limiting audit, that is a farce. Anyone on this call who's advocating for a risk limiting audit is advocating for the following. The risk limiting audit, sir, is named risk limiting because it limits all risk to finding any other result than was initially tabulated. And in Loudoun County, there was an election that they did a batch method, hand count method, and they had 20 times the allowable federal error rate in the second tabulation that they did for a risk limiting audit. That is against federal law, sir. There is no accuracy in our elections because the voter rolls in all the places that we looked at, the state's own data and the US government's own data, are over bloated by 20% plus on average over the 12 counties that we looked at. We demand that the voter rolls be cleaned up and that the state prove to the citizens in writing that the voter rolls have been corrected at the down to the county level. That's Judy Brown is the registrar of our county. Everyone's going to be put on notice that those voter rolls need to be cleaned up, and non-citizens ought not to be voting in violation of the law. 8 U.S.C. 1373 and 8 U.S.C. 1644, as pointed out in the letter to Commissioner Beals, shows that you have the responsibility and the ability to draw attention to the DHS for having non-citizens on the voter rolls. I respect having the time to talk to you about this because we're concerned about the number of people coming across the border and ending up on voter registration lists. It's a legal concern, and I brought up legal concerns on the last meeting, and I have not heard back from anyone from the board upon my submission in writing for requests for
sir.
information. And so I would ask for a follow-up on this one, because we are poised and are committed to exercising our legal options.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. And we have Howard Hempenius. Please forgive me if I mispronounce the name.
Can you see me and hear me now?
We can see you and hear you now. Welcome. Mr. Hempenius, welcome.
Mr. Howard, can you please unmute yourself?
Can you
Yeah,
unmute?
just stepped back into mute. I don't know why. In any case, I was fortunate enough to observe the two risk limiting audits with the batch comparison method that we did in Loudoun County last year, the May primary and then the November election. I'd just like to confirm or reinforce what you've already been asked to do. I'd like to request the board to authorize the use of a batch comparison method for a statewide risk limiting audit of the November 2023 election. I also request that preparations begin now for a successful risk limiting audit. I understand that I expect that there will be training has to happen. You need to make sure you have the people and everybody is ready to go if it's going to be a statewide audit. So I'd like you to request you to put those pieces in place. You've heard also, I mean, I can't say anything more about the different ballot risk limiting audit methods, I should say. You've got ballot comparison and ballot polling, and that you're probably all experts at it by now, considering you took your first steps in this direction about a year and a half ago. So I won't go through all of those. What I would like to highlight, though, is transparency is important, consistency, and things that you can explain to the voter are very important. I have tried to read the theory that's behind the ballot polling method, that document with all the statistics in there. And I did study statistics when I was in college, but it was pretty tough read. It's very tough to explain the results. And it doesn't make sense to most people because most people have some basic level of statistics from their education, at least in the generations that are probably on this call right now. So it's very hard and difficult to explain. The batch comparison is very easy and simple to explain. And I've had the opportunity to explain both sides of it. And I can say for sure, it certainly is easier to do it for batch comparison. So with that, I won't say anything further. I just appreciate your attention, and I hope that you will commit to supporting and improving the use of ballot comparison. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else, either in person or virtually, who would desire to speak during public comment at this meeting? All right. Absent that, we'll move on to our next agenda item.
This is Lieutenant Colonel Clark. I got my video working.
Welcome.
Thank you. Barely.
All right. Next is the commissioner's report. Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
I was gonna. Oh yeah.
Go.
So yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, and I apologize. In the last meeting of this body, I informed the board that the Virginia voter rolls error rates data showing Virginia voter rolls far exceeded error rates allowed by law, and the Virginia Board of Elections is violating the Help America Vote Act (HAVA), not acting to correct these errors. Susan Beals and her staff are directly responsible and still have not corrected tens of thousands. Every name on the voter rolls that is fraudulent and should not be there is a potential felony under Virginia law. If you or any government employee in this state certify our elections knowing these errors exist and exceed the 1 in 125,000 allowed by law, you are breaking the law and are at risk for being included in lawsuits that we've seen in Maryland, naming defendants as the government employees for felony charges for violating our civil rights by illegally diluting our vote. You've been informed that Virginia voter rolls far exceed the 1 in 125,000 of thousands. urge you to look up and watch the following videos, which are a few detailed examples of how the electronic poll books and these fraudulent names on the voter rolls are being used to break the law and subvert our elections. One of these videos is, and I quote, Colonel Sean Smith at Turning Point USA event in Las Vegas, January 2024. Just go to rumble.com and put in the name Colonel Sean Smith, and you will see his video. It's about 27 minutes long. It was given in Las Vegas, January of this year. Another video is by Mark Cook on voting integrity. That's exactly how it's written on YouTube. It was given in Fort Bend, Texas, July 21st of last year. Mark Cook on voting integrity. Look that up. Any Board of Elections and Ms. Beals are in jeopardy of being served with similar lawsuits in Maryland if they allow certification of any primary election, knowing the state voter rolls exceed error rates allowed by law. These laws being filed under the Civil Rights Act hold people in public office like yourselves and Ms. Beals subject to charges by law. Mr. Lister has just shown you proof of just one person on the voter rolls that should not have been there, and how people are committing felonies by using their names and addresses to vote as though they were them. The purpose of my testimony and comments is to educate and inform in the hope that you and Ms. Beals will do your duty and remove all names from the Virginia voter rolls that exceed the 1 in 125,000 error rate allowed by law. This is also meant to be public record that you have been informed that you are currently in noncompliance with Virginia and federal law.
Can't win. I apologize. All right. If no one else wishes to speak in public comment, I'm going to move to the next agenda item, which is our Commissioner's report, and welcome Commissioner Beals.
Thank you, Chairman O'Bannon, Vice Chair Dance, and members of the board. I want to thank the local registrars, their staff members, the local electoral boards, and all of the officers of election, as well as elect staff, who work together to administer the June primary. Every one of the 133 cities and counties in Virginia participated in the June primary. What this means is that every single local elections office provided 45 days of early voting, and every polling place in Virginia was open on Election Day, staffed by officers of election who worked a 15-hour day, no matter how many voters turned out to vote. Virginia is one of the only states that has multiple elections every year. And every election, we come to our citizen poll workers, known as officers of election, and ask if they will work. And every time, they put up their hand and say, yes, I will serve. So I want to publicly thank our officers of election for their service to their communities. General registrars, their staffs, local electoral boards, and officers of election form a team in every community who handle any issues that may come up on Election Day. For example, in the 5th Congressional District, out of 24 cities and counties in that district, and out of 303 precincts, there were 3 precincts in which fire alarms were triggered on Election Day. In each of these 3 cases, the polling place was at a school, and the alarm was triggered by maintenance activities, which are typically conducted during the summer when students and teachers are on break. In every case, officers of election secured voting equipment, reopened quickly, and ensured that no voters were turned away. As you know, in Virginia, elections are administered at the local level. This is for good reason, as local electoral boards, general registrars, and officers of election are integral parts of their communities who know their neighborhoods and consistently deliver safe and secure elections for their citizens. This local responsibility means that there will be occasional issues with administration, as there are 133 individual elections being held. Anytime you have a process that is run by humans, issues may occur. But these are not systemic problems that call into question the results of the election. Election results are checked 3 times before coming to this board for certification. They are checked at the precinct level on election night when every officer of election in each polling place signs the statement of results. They are checked a second time at the city and county level by electoral boards during the canvass following the election when each precinct statement of results is compared to the results tapes for accuracy. Results are then checked a third time at the state level by the staff at the Department of Elections when abstracts are sent to the department for review. Once results have been reviewed, they are certified by the state board in accordance with the law. Only once the election has been certified can a losing candidate request a recount. Our electoral system is firmly grounded on the principle of the rule of law. All persons, processes, and polling places are accountable to the laws enacted at the state and federal levels. Our system has protections in place if issues occur in our elections. A losing candidate has the ability to contest an election with specific allegations of irregularities through the courts, not through the body that certifies the results. Every election has candidates who are disappointed with the results. But with the extensive checks and balances we have in place, candidates can be assured that they will have fair and secure elections, and voters in the Commonwealth can be confident in the results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item is one item of old business. Request for petition for removal of electoral board member. Mr. Koski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. You have today before you a continuation of a matter from the May 28th meeting, which is the petition for the removal of Charles City County Electoral Board member Ann Kinney. As you'll recall, at that meeting, you received testimony from both the petitioners and the respondent. You received the petition previously as well, which had some attachments, and then you've undoubtedly seen we've received numerous pieces of correspondence in that time. So the department has attempted to collect all these materials for you and presented it in order to give you an overview of the representations made by the parties and the related allegations. Included in this correspondence that you saw related to an event that occurred after that meeting, but was relevant sort of to the overall issues at hand. So that was included also. It should be noted, though, that ELECT did not make any findings of fact nor make any recommendations. This decision of whether to institute removal proceedings in the court rests completely with the board.
Thank you very much. I do want to thank you for your excellent summary of this, which is in our board working papers.
Thank you.
All right. So at this point, I think we're going to choose to have a very brief closed session to finish this topic. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 and 2.2-3711A7, I move that the board go into closed session for the purpose of discussing the petition for the removal of an appointed member of an electoral board. In accordance with Section 2.2-3712F, Susan Beals, Commissioner of Elections, Stephen Koski, Elect Compliance Advisor, and Andrew Murphy and Dennis Polio of the Office of the Attorney General will attend the closed session because their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the subject of the meeting.
Is there a second?
I second.
Call the roll, please.
Yes, Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right. We'll now go into a brief closed session and hopefully won't last too long. We'll get back to the agenda. Thank you all. We live? All right. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to reconvene the meeting in open session and take a roll call vote certifying that to the best of each member's knowledge, only such public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard or discussed by the State Board of Elections.
I second.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Here.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to 24.2103 of the Code of Virginia, I move that the State Board of Elections direct its legal representation to prepare a petition to the Circuit Court of Charles City County for the removal of Maria A. Kinney from the Charles City County Electoral Board for failure to discharge her official duties under Virginia law.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second, Mr. Chair.
All right. Board have any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
I want to thank everybody. This is never easy. Since the board, there's sufficient factual information to justify moving this on the next step. We will now try the case. And it is a very convincing one. I'm losing the battle. So I think it's the sense of the board that this is sufficient factual information to justify taking this step. And just remind everybody that we're not adjudicating it. That will be the court's job. And they have a clear and convincing standard. So I just thank everybody for your work on this. All right. New business, ranked choice voting regulation. Mr. Koski, you're earning your money today.
Hello again. So I have for you today in your board packet a proposed amendment to the RCV ranked choice voting regulations. This would allow for batch elimination of candidates. This is would be provided as an optional tool for localities to avoid prolonged tabulation of ranked choice voting races where there are a large number of candidates receiving a small number of votes. These candidates, it's mathematically impossible for them to be elected. So rather than going round by round, you would eliminate them in a batch. So under the current method, you could have, say, a dozen candidates with 1 vote each, and you'd have to go round by round to eliminate them. And with batch elimination, you would be able to eliminate them in 1 round. This does not change anything in terms of ballot treatment, the current rules for ballot treatment under the regulation. Those votes are transferred. The next highest ranking on the ballot is transferred to the candidates, just like it would be in a round by round situation. And that would all be accounted for as well in the cast vote record and in the results as they're displayed. So you would still have the same information. One thing that we did add that was, I think you were provided with a small non-substantive addition, and it was related to some of the public comment that you heard before this. There are provisions for tie-breaking procedures in the existing regulation. So we just make it clear that that provision doesn't apply if you use batch elimination, because if you have 2 people tied with 1 vote who are batch eliminated, they're just both eliminated. So that's mostly a cleanup for that.
All right. Thank you very much. So just so everybody knows where we are working off the document that was on the dais today and not what was in the working papers.
Is that correct? Did you give them? Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, and it's a very small, I can direct you to the addition.
Sure.
Let's see, page 225. Oh, this is just mine. You see the underlined provision, that's subsection 4, that says notwithstanding subdivision 3B of 1 VAC 20-100-40. That's the language that's added. And so that's just saying that provision related to tie breaks is not relevant for batch elimination.
Thank you very much. Any members have any questions or comments about this? Is there a motion?
As the representative of the jurisdiction where we use ranked choice voting, I'm happy to do it, Mr. Chair. I move that the State Board of Elections approve the proposed amendments to regulatory actions 1 VAC 20-100-10 and 1 VAC 20-100-50.
Motion made by Mr. Weinstein and seconded by Ms. Dance. Please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Steve. Appreciate your good work. Ms. Alexander, this next item is informational, and I'd like to recognize Ms. Alexander, who's our campaign finance compliance and training supervisor.
Good afternoon, Chairman O'Bannon and the rest of the board. It's nice to see you all today. This is purely informational, so there's no action for you to take today. The applicable code sections are 24.2-948.5, reviews of campaign finance reports and records. In 2022, HB 492 was passed creating this code, which allows us to review campaign finance records and reports. Before, we didn't have this ability. So I'm here to let you guys know, because I'm not going to read the memo to you. You are grown-up people. It's simply to let you know, as of August 1st, we will start notifying candidates who are on the November general, who are in the November general, that they could be chosen for the review process. The review process, so we'll send out an email, which will lay it out for them, so they're not surprised. But we wanted you guys to know, so if you get phone calls and say, what's this all about? You'll know. So these emails are going to go out on August 1st, September 1st, October 1st, and then November again. Then at the RLA meeting, we will, or not we, you guys will make the drawing out of what I like to call the tombola of destiny. That is basically a lottery where we'll choose the winners of this. And right now we're looking at 6 whole winners. That's it. So we'll do 6 reviews this year. It's kind of a dress rehearsal for next year. Have any questions?
Mike, that's all. So this was interesting to me because I did go back and look at the original bill, House Bill 492 from 22, which was Dave Bulovas. Do you have an idea of how much this is going to cost us each year? That may not be a fair question to ask you.
Yeah, you would have to send that back to the department, because we did have to hire an outside entity to help prepare everything we needed for this. So I would suppose that would be part of the cost. But this year, since we're only doing 6, we can pretty much pull that one off in-house. But like I said, this is a dress rehearsal for next year. Next year, we're probably going to do around 70 to 100.
So what is a GME?
That would be Gwynn Muse Enterprises. They have prepared our statements, our standard operating procedures, all the tools we'll use to prepare these reviews. They've done an outstanding job, and I'm looking forward to them.
So this is just another new obligation for us.
Correct.
As a result of legislation.
Mm-hmm.
The fiscal impact statement was 33,000. So I just throw that out.
I can see that.
Anybody have any questions? All right, thanks for the warning.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have split precincts. Welcome, Ms. Scott.
Good afternoon, Chairman O'Bannon, members of the State Board of Elections. I'm here to provide you with a split precinct waiver. This precinct waiver comes from my hometown of Chesapeake City. And as you know, pursuant to 24.2-307 of the Code of Virginia, authorizes the State Board of Elections to grant a waiver to administer a split precinct if the governing body of a locality is unable to establish a precinct with the minimum number of registered voters without splitting a precinct. Pursuant to that same statute, the minimum number of registered voters for a county is 100, and a minimum for a city precinct is 500. And if you would turn in your bulletin to the split precinct waiver itself, this is for, again, Chesapeake City, precinct 54, Pewsville. This affects 319 voters. This was previously applied for both in 2022 as well as 2023, and both were granted. And as the minimum is still under that 500 threshold, Elect staff recommends approving the split precinct waiver from Chesapeake City.
Thank you. Any questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the State Board of Elections approve the split precinct waiver from Chesapeake City.
Is there a second?
I second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Please call the roll. Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merricks.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Alvis Long, aye.
All right, thank you. Ms. Scott, next agenda is yours as well?
Yep, and that's the thing is mine as well. Again, I'm going to be presenting to you updates to the delegations of authority each year following every General Assembly session. The Department of Elections updates the delegations of authority to incorporate legislative changes to the document and review any such for clarity or necessary revisions as directed by the State Board of Elections. In general, ELECT conducts the SBE's administrative and programmatic operations and discharges the SBE's duties consistent with the delegated authority. During the 2024 General Assembly session, 116 election-related bills were introduced, and ultimately 22 bills became law. These changes impacted Chapters 1, Chapter 2.1, and Chapter 5. In addition to addressing legislative changes, the SBE has directed ELECT to review Chapter 3 regarding the approval of split precinct waivers. Now, again, as if you would turn in your hymnal to the NETS memorandum, Chapter 1. This is a delegation that is being removed pursuant to the 2024 Donor Acts of Assembly, Chapter 406, colloquially known as HB 989. This bill directs, instead of the state board, it now directs the department specifically to provide information on its website, as well as to translate those things on its website. So basically, because there is now being specifically directed to the department, we no longer need this delegation. Any questions?
Any questions?
No. All right.
So just so we're all on, this is an obligation every year to review this delegation.
Correct.
60
Correct, sir.
pages. Most of this is governed by the laws that went in. Some of this part of the code has changed, and most of these reflect that. But the one thing we are doing is going to go ahead and delegate back to the department the split precincts.
So the delegations of authority, so these are things in the code that say like the state board shall do X. And basically the department, like I said, we execute those administrative things, those things that are more process-based on your behalf, those things that you have delegated us to do. And because of those changes during the latest General Assembly session, most of these are a reflection of those changes that the General Assembly has done. But specifically, Chapter 3 is something that just based on time and resources that we felt as a department that we would like to delegate back.
Most all of this is cleanup. The one thing we are doing is giving the split precincts back to the department.
Correct.
Everybody understanding that the way the rules are now, split precincts have to be brought before us every year, every one of them.
Correct.
And so this, I think, will streamline our meetings and doesn't change anything substantively.
That's the idea.
Anybody have any questions? Is there a motion?
No questions, but Mr. Chair, I move that the above, the board approve the proposed 2024 delegation of authority pursuant to the Virginia Administrative Process Act, and I further move that all prior delegations of authority be rescinded.
There a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Lawless, welcome. RLA manual. Item E, under new business.
Good afternoon, Chairman O'Bannon, Vice Chair Dance, and members of the State Board of Elections. Pursuant to 24.2-671.2B of the Code of Virginia, the State Board of Elections must prescribe the procedures for conducting a risk-limiting audit. These procedures are outlined in the risk-limiting audit manual, which must be approved by the State Board of Elections. The manual is updated annually to reflect legislative changes as well as procedural improvements. Today, I will be walking you through these proposed amendments only. We will not be deciding the method, risk limit, or any additional races for audit at today's meeting. To summarize the legislative changes that impacted this year's revisions, ELECT amended the timelines for conducting the audit, Chapter 738 of the 2024 Governor's Acts of Assembly expanded the local canvass from 7 to 10 days. This impacted RLA timelines and moved the RLA SB meeting in November to the third Monday of the month. Additionally, due to language inserted into the 2024 Virginia state budget, any mention of a potential RLA of a presidential contest was removed. Lastly, a new provision was also added to provide clarification to the existing manual and streamline the administration of RLAs in the Commonwealth. By no later than the September State Board of Elections meeting, the SBE will vote on the method for the upcoming statutorily required RLA, as well as the proposed risk limit. As a reminder, both the ballot polling and batch comparison methods have been approved for use in the Commonwealth. Lastly, if the SBE wishes to audit an additional contest under 24.2-671.2 C4 of the Code of Virginia, they must also do so by 2/3 majority vote at this meeting. Does the board have any questions?
Members have any questions or comments?
Just a couple of questions that confirm. One, the statewide audits are discretionary, not required under the code. Is that correct? Under 671.24.
So in any year, that is correct.
Okay.
So you would have to vote on the Senate if you would like to audit the Senate this year. We will be doing the U.S. House race. That is what's guaranteed. So.
Okay. And then the reason we could do this, if we're doing it statewide, is for the Senate this year, not the presidential elections, because of state budget language signed by the governor, enacted by the General Assembly.
Correct. We cannot do a presidential risk limiting audit this year.
Thank you.
So just so I understand, if we approve this, then at our September meeting, we will do a Senate race and pick a House race?
So the House race will be picked at the November meeting.
November
If you,
meeting.
yeah, but if you would like to audit the Senate race, you will have to take a vote at the September meeting. You will also be setting the risk limit for the audits.
And we'll determine the method, and
Correct.
both those pieces of information will need to pass by 2/3 to
Correct.
get accomplished by the state board. I don't want to use awkward language. All right, any questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move the State Board of Elections adopt the proposed amendments to the risk limiting audit manual.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
By the way, that September meeting is on September the 3rd. All right. Mr. Abel? This is an annual thing we draw for the party back order. You have the magic bowl. I'm not turning it off on purpose.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Chairman O'Bannon, Vice Chairwoman Dance, State Board members, Commissioner Beals, Council. Good afternoon. Matthew Abel with the Department of Elections. That's an obvious one. But I'm the Election Services Senior Advisor, and yes, sir. Before you now, this agenda item is for ballot drawing for elections in the Commonwealth. Again, don't want to read you the entirety of the memo, but by Virginia law, there are two recognized political parties in the Commonwealth. By the definition, that is the Democratic Party of Virginia and the Republican Party of Virginia. However, through subsequent establishment, very much so through the presidential ballot access, Virginia has also recognized that other political parties exist in the Commonwealth. And subsequently, there has been additions to 613 of the code that entitles them to ballot drawing for recognition of their candidates on the ballot. And to have a full discussion in this, we do recognize 613 in its language, in that party representation or party ID on Virginia's ballots is only present for federal, statewide, and General Assembly races. So party representation goes down ballot. Party representation is at the local level as well. So the drawing first is for Democrat and Republican. That will set ballot positions 1 and 2 throughout the Commonwealth's ballot. So there is uniformity in this first drawing. The second drawing is for the additional non-recognized political parties. Again, don't want to discredit them. By their nature, they do exist. They just have not met the definition in 101 of the Code of Virginia. So yes, sir, I have slips. What we do is we do a drawing. For those here who have not seen it before, we have slips of paper that recognize these names, this election, and we'll put them in the film canisters, put them in the crystal bowl. So the first drawing will be 2 film canisters. I'll ask the chairman to designate someone to pull the first canister. The first canister will be for first ballot position. The chairman will also designate another member of the board to pull the second canister for transparency, so we see that there is second position with that political party. I'll come back to the lectern. We'll add the additional political parties, and we'll do a subsequent drawing. That would be for positions 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In absence of those political parties fielding candidates, excuse me, I was slipping on my tongue. In absence of those political party candidates, even with the Democrats and the Republicans, then it's the escalation of that position over. If Congressman Scott is the only major political party candidate in 3rd Congressional District, he will be ballot position 1 in absence of a Republican, and vice versa, not picking any favorites or anything. But in terms of the absence of a political party, everybody else comes up. Independents by law are always last or first if it's a nonpartisan race, and they are in their specific ballot order by time of filing with their local registrar's office. So trying not to be super confusing, but that's the totality of the
Thank you
subject.
for your explanation, and please proceed.
All right. Now I'm told I can just show these on screen. If not, James, you'll. Okay. So trying not to get my thumbs in the way here. So what I've done here is I've put Republican Party of Virginia, Democratic Party of Virginia. I'm going to fold these slips, put them in the crystal bowl, and we'll select. Who would you like to designate first draw? Who will be yours?
No, I still got one glasses on. Stop it. Tuesday, November the 5th, 2024, General and Special Elections, Democratic Party of Virginia.
First position.
Let's hope that's.
Second position would be Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, General and Special Elections, Republican Party of Virginia.
That's not the next one.
Will indulge me in just a quick side comment. the previous crystal ball that we did ballot drawings with predated me. I have been in Virginia elections for 24 years. Unfortunately, the slip of the hand, that old crystal ball shattered. And so we are now using a brand new crystal ball. So
You haven't consulted with Mr. Sabato, have you?
no, that's a very good suggestion, but no, sir, I did not, or we did not. So the next drawing again is for non-recognized political parties in that they have not achieved the definition of 101. And so our pool here is of our universe in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So my very first slip, if that can be seen, is the Libertarian Party of Virginia. My second slip is the Constitution Party of Virginia. Third slip is the Forward, with an F, Forward Party of Virginia. Fourth slip is the Green Party of Virginia. The fifth slip is the Independent Green Party of Virginia. And the last slip was the Socialist Equality Party of Virginia. Same procedure, all slips go into the crystal bowl in film canisters, drawn randomly for positions 3 through 6. No, I'm getting my math wrong, sorry. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, not to set the expectation that this is a huge ballot in the Commonwealth, but it addresses everybody in a position. So there is, again, uniformity for all ballots across the Commonwealth. All right, I'm now placing the 6 film canisters in the crystal bowl. We'll approach the board and we'll do these one at a time for 3 through the end ballot order.
Plenty for everybody.
Mr. Weinstein?
Sure. So the Tuesday, November 5th, 2024 general and special elections Socialist Equality Party of Virginia.
For ballot position 3. Yes, sir. Secretary Alves.
Right. Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, general and special elections, Green Party of Virginia.
For ballot position 4. Yes, ma'am. Chairman O'Bannon.
For position 5, Constitutional Party of Virginia.
Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, general and special elections, position 6, Libertarian Party of Virginia.
The number 7 position would be the Forward Party of Virginia.
Sir.
The 8th position is Independent Green Party of Virginia. They want to consider a side hustle at the lottery or the casino in Danville.
From your lips, Dr. O'Bannon, Chairman O'Bannon, excuse me. So yes, then we have performed the drawing. I would beg the State Board's indulgence to the recommendation in terms of the application window for this drawing. You will see where staff recommends that this ballot drawing be performed, applied between August 1 of 2024 through July 31st of 2025. I will say, I think that's a conservative approach because I doubt very seriously we're going to have special elections between today and August 1st. But it would be the recommendation or the suggested motion to hold this applicable to July 2nd, 2024. So instead, just draw the line through August 1st and replace it with July 2nd. If it pleases the board, that way we are covered for that window of time.
Great. So the chair would accept a motion with that substitution.
Mr. Chair, I move that the board certify the determination by lot of the ballot order for all general and special elections being held July 2nd, 2024 through July 31, 2025.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Call the roll, please.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right, thank you. And our last agenda item in open session, I think, is also yours, Matt.
Yes, sir. Yes, so we are the State Board of Elections, the Department of Elections. We're here for this purpose, which is to certify elections. This comes specifically from 24.2-534 of the code. Primary elections hold uniqueness in that this is not elected to office. This is election victories become the nominees of the political parties conducting the primary to appear on November's ballot. You conduct a primary, you administer a primary, you do everything as if it were a normal, quote, air quotes, normal election or a general election or special election. So I don't think I need to belabor any more of the points that the commissioner made so eloquently in her comments about how localities have worked hard, officers have worked hard, electoral boards have worked hard, general registrars have worked hard, as they always do, to bring results to finality. And this is the final piece of that, to certify that these election results are what they appear to be. And so there are clear winners in every race, as there always are after action items, as the commissioner also referenced, will happen. But we're at a point to say to this board, these are the results. These are the official results in the Republican Party primary election and the Democratic Party primary election. So we've accumulated all mass totals. They are present in the copies of the abstracts of votes that I shared earlier, that I also have a secondary copy of. As those that are familiar, we're just signing abstracts of votes. These will represent that these individuals are the nominee. There will be some back-end work on our end at the department to reflect these candidates as qualified for the November election. So I would just reference that on each of these abstracts of votes, the statement is present and clear and concise. It designates the winner. I would draw the board's attention to the seal at the bottom and the signature lines at the bottom, but also ask that a date be provided on each of the abstracts. So that would go across, reading from left to right, given under our hands this 2nd or 2nd day of July 2024. And it's before the board then to sign these abstracts and certify these results.
Great. Any members of the board have any comments?
Now, Mr. Chair, I move
Go right
that the
ahead.
board certify the results of the June 18, 2024 Republican and Democratic primary elections as presented and declare the winners of each primary to be that party's nominee for the November 5th, 2024 general election.
Is there a second?
I second.
Great. These are we've all reviewed these, all of them.
Yeah.
These are the live copies that we need to
Yes, sir.
sign and get back to you.
Yes, sir. And there will be, again, not that it is a perfunctory issue or an automatic issue, but we all are aware of how close the results are in the 5th Republican Congressional District race. It's upon, by this action to certify the results, the losing candidate in 0.6% margin of loss to request a to request a recount. So there may be a request of this department that Secretary Alvis Long provide or make certified copies of just the Republican 5th congressional abstracts for candidates for that recount or any other evidence that's needed by a recount court. So there will be additional copies or an additional requirement or request of the department to do for the 5th congressional. But there are 2 copies there of each set. Unfortunately, yes, signatures applied by each member, and then we will, if it's the permission or pleasure of the secretary to come back to the department with us to execute those additional certified copies, she would have our great appreciation.
Any additional comments? Please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Alvis Long, aye.
I want to thank everybody for their work on this, Matthew. As Commissioner Beal said, all of the folks all over the state, but particularly those close places. I think we can comfortably say we've had free and fair elections in this primary, and I hope we will continue to be able to say that through November, and I think we will.
Hear, hear.
All right. We are going to have a brief closed session. So if there's no other business, I do want to thank everybody for, this was a really actually productive meeting. We had a lot of things we had to do. And I do want to thank the Capitol Police for their presence here today to help us. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Going to close session.
Oh, yeah, closed session. I'm trying to get out of here. All right. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A7, I move that the board go into closed session for the purpose of discussing pending threatened litigation in accordance with Section 2.2-3712F. Susan Beals, Commissioner of Elections, and Andrew Murphy and Dennis Polio of the Office of the Attorney General will attend the closed session because their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the subject of the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance. Aye. Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Alvis Long, aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to reconvene the meeting in open session and take a roll call vote certifying that to the best of each member's knowledge, only such public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard or discussed by the State Board of Elections.
I second, Mr. Chair.
Please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
Great. There being no further business, I think we can adjourn this meeting. Thanks, everybody. Franchell and James, thank you for the expertise. Our next meeting is August 20th, and that will be here in this room. Okay. All righty.
Yes.
Everybody have a good summer.